Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Not D&D, brought to you by EM World. As always, I am your host, Jessica, and this week we have a special guest with us. Coming in all the way from Australia, we have Mitchell from Fire and Fables Studios. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you for getting up early, because I know it's early morning your time. So, feel free to have a cup of coffee while we chat, because it's late night for us in the UK and early evening for people listening in the US. If you are listening to the podcast, anything we're talking about, we will have linked in the show notes, so you can check that out there. And if you're watching live, hello, thanks for joining us. We're recording live, so feel free to put any questions in the chat or any comments, and you can join in and we'll answer any questions. So thanks for watching live. So Mitchell, we're going to be talking about your game First Encounter, which is live on Kickstarter right now. I'll put the link in the chat if anyone wants to check it out. But before we talk about the game, do you mind if I chat about you as a gamer and your background and history with games?
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. So my first classic question is always, do you remember the first game that you played, the first tabletop experience you had?
I think when I was really young, my impression of tabletop games wasn't great because I think it was Monopoly.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's a lot of people's experience, yeah.
Yeah, I would routinely beat my family at, for whatever reasons, whether I was cheating when I was younger or just accidentally stumbled into strategy, but they hated it. I ended up hating it. I think the first game I really, really loved was, I think it's like a late 80s board game called Nightmare or Atmosphere.
Yeah,
I think is the
Atmosphere.
version.
Yes.
And that was what got me really like, oh, this is cool. Like this is a really like interesting thing.
Yeah.
And then it just sort of grew from there. I didn't get into the actual like RPG space until a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
And then got very, very heavily into it.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really escalated. What was the first role-playing game that you played?
D&D. At least
classic.
for tabletop D&D, I'd been playing like
Yeah.
RPGs on video games for ages.
Cool. Yeah. It's fair to say that First Encounter, we're going to talk about it in a bit, but there's lots of influences from D&D clearly, but in terms of rules mechanics, it doesn't feel very close. So where did you go from playing Dungeons and Dragons? Did you move into more indie space or?
Yeah, so from playing Dungeons and Dragons, I did what I think every permanent DM does and started tinkering with the system a little bit and be like, I don't really like how this works, so I'll toy with that a little, read other systems, explore a bit, see what they do and they offer. I think one of the ones I got really excited, which came out quite recently, was the Old Gods of Appalachia RPG that I might be wrong. I think it ran on the Cypher system.
I think so, but now you're making me question it as well. But let's say it is.
I'm saying this live. No.
Sure, yeah.
And that was really cool. So it gave me a lot of ideas on how to tinker with. A lot of people I was playing with just wanted to play D&D at the time, so just tinkering with that. But yeah, I just sort of made it a thing to, even if we're playing D&D, to read and get familiar with a lot of other systems and see how I can use that to influence what we're doing in Dungeons and Dragons. Basically.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people do that. Like, I think different systems, even if you don't end up playing them and then they're not for you, you take a little bit of something for other games that you do like, and it just you can learn something from systems you have.
Yeah.
But that sounds great. So you're the forever GM. You're trying out different systems. You're putting new stuff into your games. How did Fire and Fable Studios start? Because a lot of people run games and enjoy the hobby, but they don't publish games. So how did that happen?
Yeah, so Fire and Fable has been a very long time in the works. It's something I've wanted to do for years, and my partner has wanted to do as well, who unfortunately couldn't be with us this morning. But we never really had the opportunity because obviously financial stuff, you can't commit all your time to developing games, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we'd been slowly working on it in the background for a while, just because we thought we're both very creative people. My partner's an artist. And I've always enjoyed just tinkering with mechanics. And I realized recently that I uncovered a few games that I built as a kid. And yeah, so we just slowly worked towards it. And then eventually this opportunity came up where we could try to commit to it full time, but it was like this little window where it's like, if we don't do it now, we don't know if the opportunity will like come up again.
Sure.
So yeah, I think about a year ago, we decided to just fully commit. Um,
Wow.
might as well give it a shot. What, like, what's the worst that could happen?
Mhm.
And yeah, just got really into building a bigger system that we're working on in the background. But First
Mhm.
Encounter was our first like baby project that we were really wanting to bring to everyone. And uh, well, initially it wasn't even going to be a Kickstarter. It was just like this. We'll just have this little project that we work on that's really
Mhm.
cool. And, yeah, and
Fantastic.
that was about it. We sort of just stumbled into it, I guess.
Great. Well, the Kickstarter is now live, as I mentioned. I put the link in the chat there so people can go check it out. It is fully funded, so congratulations. It is happening.
Thank
You have
you.
to do it now.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
So let's talk about it. What is First Encounter? Give us the intro pitch for the game.
Yeah, so there are in the world of First Encounter, the evilest, the most vile thing you could possibly be is an NPC. These
Mhm.
things, they come in, they raise forests, they set up farmland, they build walls, and in doing so, they remove all the creature folk out of the world. Goblins, slimes, giant rats, giant spiders, slowly pushing them further back into their various territories while they expand. Uh, in First Encounter, you take on the role of these creature folk, which are basically every level 1 creature you fought in an RPG or a JRPG.
Mhm.
Um, things that you have historically killed hundreds of, very likely. Um, and you are trying to prevent the NPCs from doing one of the vilest things they've ever done, calling in some of the most dangerous weapons in the world, level 1 adventurers.
Legas.
Basically immortal creatures that Creaturefolk
Mhm.
couldn't hope to overcome. And that's the premise. You need to stop them from doing whatever their plan is that they've come in to do, whether it's stopping the Fey ritual that your people have spent 100 years waiting for, or
Mhm.
slaying the dragon that's been your guardian and protector from the mountaintops.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really fun idea because, like, a lot of people we've played, dungeon delving games like D&D, and we've been the level 1 adventurers going in, cutting through. So it's nice to play the other side of that for sure.
Yeah, we
What
want to go for strong role reversal on this. So
Oh, I
yeah.
mean, you 100% got it. It's very clear what the pitch is. It's great. What was your inspiration for making the game? What made you want to create this?
I think I've always enjoyed flipped narrative approaches to games. I think one
Mhm.
of the early like flash games that I used to play was called Villainous, I think, which was like a flipped tower defense game where you create the monsters and send them in and
Oh,
the
right.
towers try
Okay,
to
yeah.
stop you.
Mhm.
Um and then I found that sort of creeping into my uh RPG worlds whenever I would be building something for players, it would be like, cool, yeah, you're going out to slay these goblins or these creatures or anything. But also, once you've killed a few of them, unfortunately, there's this whole ecosystem behind that that you've
Mhm.
now disrupted, and you need to morally deal with the consequences of. Um, and then, because that can get pretty heavy sometimes,
Yeah.
um, we thought it'd be cool to have that idea distilled in a game that was still really light, and you didn't need to
Mhm.
really deal with the moral ramifications. It was silly, it was light, it was fun, and it was very much making fun of the immortal level 1 fantasy heroes.
Mhm. Fabulous. And so, you talked in the game, we're gonna be playing these creature folk. Can you tell us a little bit more about who we'll be playing and what kind of I know they've got different unique abilities and stuff they can do. So, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we try to lean in as heavy on fantasy tropes as we could. The whole game, from the loot you pick up to the places you visit, as tropey, I think, as you can get for fantasy. So there's 8 creature folk you get to play with.
Mhm.
The shroom folk, which sentient mushroom people,
Mhm.
slimes, which we're all familiar with, giant rats, giant spiders, shades, kobolds, goblins, and I feel like I'm forgetting one almost definitely.
But But many options to choose from already from what you've said. Yeah.
There'll be 8 Creaturefolk to choose from. We wanted to really just make sure we didn't branch too far out into beyond the really weak, like, level 1 creatures that you would be fighting, even though there's obviously hundreds of fantasy-style creatures we can pick from.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've all got their individual strengths. None of them are particularly powerful.
Sure.
Um,
But that's
uh,
the aim of the game.
yeah,
I understand that. I'm the underdog.
yeah, giant rats can burrow through the ground. Giant spiders can climb on vertical surfaces. I think the one that we had a lot of fun with was the shade can mimic other people's shadows. And especially if you do a good enough skill check, you can do that while they're moving. So very good for espionage, especially in a game where you are not really supposed to be fighting directly.
Right.
But they've all got weaknesses as well. The shade can't interact with anything physical without a very solid skill check. The shroom folk are considered a delicacy by NPCs, and NPCs will attempt to eat them on sight.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Kobolds. Kobolds, I believe, can accidentally set themselves up in their own traps if they're not careful enough.
Well, we've all done that. That makes sense.
We've all
Absolutely.
done that. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, we tried to go for these really fun, silly, low mechanical requirement abilities and weaknesses, things that just let you role play it, basically be really loose and silly with it and give you a lot of options while also very much limiting what you can impactfully achieve against, like, the heroes, the adventurers.
Sounds great. Okay, so we'll pick a character that we're playing. So we've got, like I say, 8 different options there. They all have different, like, abilities and negatives to them.
Yep.
So where do we go from there with character creation? Is there much else involved in creating a character? Because, like we
No.
mentioned, it's quite low prep and quite rules light system. So
Yeah, we tried to design the system so that you could feasibly get the game master's guide and the player's handbook, and you could open it up on the spot, and both sides, both running the game and playing the game, should be able to learn it pretty much immediately.
perfect.
So character creation takes 5 to 10 minutes, maybe longer if you all argue about who you want to be. But you've only got 4 stats: body, mind, riz, and luck. And you've got a stat point distribution that's really simple. It's just +1s, +2s, and -1. And then there's really not much else. Like, you can, of course, like, we promote adding your own flavor. You've got a home region that each of the creature folk come from that might give you an advantage in knowing what's around there or something like that. But really, Creaturefolk character design should be done in 5 minutes. You could probably plan it in your head a few seconds before the game starts once you're familiar with them.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that sounds really accessible. So, bearing in mind we've got our creatures made, mechanically, how does the game work? I know you mentioned on the crowdfunding page we'll need a D10 and a D20. So, how do those come into play?
So the creature folk get D10s. So for everything that you'll be doing, no matter what the check is, no matter what it is you're attempting to do, it'll always be with a D10 with whatever your +1 or +2 stat is. And that's really it. We've thrown in, like, the staple advantage and disadvantage. Roll twice, take highest. Roll twice, take the lowest. Because that feels very fantasy-esque, I think.
Sure.
And then the D20 only comes into play if you decide you are brave enough to try to take on the adventurers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you never get access to a D20 except in one very rare case. If you get very lucky on some loot. But yeah, the heroes as these immortal beings basically get a D20. You try to attack them, they'll be attacking you back with something far more powerful. When they try to accomplish their goal at the end of the modules, like at the end of the campaign, they'll be doing so with D20s. So you're very much fighting against the odds. You need everything going in your favor to overcome it.
Fantastic. So it sounds like this isn't a big combat game, like you say, because these adventurers are going to be much stronger than me as the tiny mushroom that I am. So if we're not fighting the adventurers, what are we doing in the game? What does a game session look like?
Yeah, so when you start out, at least for the pre-built modules, when you start out, the heroes are just, or the adventurers are just coming into town.
Mhm.
It is, you don't know much about what their plans are. You don't know anything about what they're here specifically to do. So most of the game is you trying to find ways to get into town amongst all these NPCs who would like you banished or to actively do you harm.
Yeah.
And you can do so in, I mean, through the playtesting, we've had so many different approaches to that problem.
Yeah?
I was
Any
initially,
favorites?
yes, we had one who was playing a skeleton who decided to just run screaming through the town that they were the deceased relative of the head of the town, basically, and tried to cause a big enough distraction and try not to get killed for long enough that everyone else could just waltz into town and
Sure.
collect the information that they needed, which
Mhm.
was the complete opposite of what we were anticipating, which is you'll probably have to sneak.
Mhm.
Um,
No, I'll run in screaming.
yeah, running
Ah,
screaming.
sure.
But that was by my partner Lou, who I can always rely on to do the most chaotic possible approach to any given scenario.
Sure. I
Um,
think we've all had a player like that at our table as a game master, so I think that's
yes,
very relatable.
yeah. But the idea is, depending on the composition of your team, there's all sorts of ways you could get into town and get this information. From causing a massive distraction to just burrowing under the entire town. We want it to be quite quick, like no more than, unless your players are doing something really silly, no more than a small handful of obstacles to any given goal.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, you get into town, you get the information, you find out what the adventurers are up to, and then the next few days are spent trying to either race the adventurers to whatever MacGuffin they're trying to get, which are called mythical artifacts.
Mhm.
These are artifacts that are somewhere within your Creaturefolk territories, the Festering Forest or the Corrupted Cemetery, they're considered either important to the Creaturefolk or are being specifically like kept away from NPCs.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so you need to try and find out where they're going, beat them to it, or if you don't beat them to it, find a way to get it from them without confronting the heroes directly, because you cannot beat them in a confrontation. You could hold your ground against NPCs, but
Mhm.
definitely not against adventurers.
Nice. It's a nice looming threat there to try and make you think creatively.
Yes.
One of the things that I mean, this sounds fantastic for a one-shot game. It sounds great for a convention because, like you say, it's light-hearted. It's quick to get to the table, get things running. And one thing you said in the campaign, which I really love, is zero prep. I love a zero prep game because I have so many games that I want to run that sit on my shelf that I don't because I don't make the time to prepare them.
I know.
Zero prep games, I get to the table. So how have you structured the game, or what things have you done to make it zero prep for the GMs? And do you have any general advice for people that want to pick this up and run this?
Yeah, I think my main advice, beyond anything written out in the handbooks, my main advice would just be as many fantasy tropes as you know, lean into them and lean into them as heavily as you can.
Mhm.
I feel like they lend themselves to being very silly and quick paced and fun. When you just lean into every little like fantasy, especially D&D style fantasy
Mhm.
trope and stereotype that you know. um, Makes for very fun and quick games that are quite dynamic. The way we've tried to approach it is by the modules that we'll be releasing, the pre-built modules we'll be releasing for the adventures, don't just exist on their own. They are built up on a very modular system that we have going that will be available in the Guide Master's Handbook,
Mhm.
which basically already has pre-written descriptions of areas of the mythical artifacts, things that you could just very much like when you read bigger modules for larger RPG systems, they'll have,
Mhm.
you know, scripts and little bits and pieces. We tried to make enough of those that you could feasibly run the entire game, and all you need to do is the little glue bits in between. Um,
Mhm.
so we've got flavor text there, we've got little bits of lore, and you could build an entire module yourself if you didn't want to run a pre-built one by just copying and pasting those into the right format, and you've already got an adventure built that will be semi-random, that because of the structure of it, the players aren't already going to be, even if they know they have 5 days to complete the objective, they still don't know what the objective is or what order they'll have
Mhm.
to do things. It's just very easy to pick up pieces and place them into the module, and you have a new adventure that you'll need to take from a different approach.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's where the zero sort of prep comes in. Like you could, if you wanted to, hopefully, it's worked in testing so far. Open the Games Master's Guide and be like, right, I want them to get. I haven't even decided what the adventurers are doing yet, but I know I want them to go get this mythical artifact, and you could run that and figure it out while they're doing that, where you're going to go from there. So yeah, while we're designing it to build the entire module, and you should be able to do that quite quickly, we think and we really hope in the final design, you should just be able to build it literally as you play.
Mhm. Perfect. That sounds ideal. I mean, speaking about the final design, we talked that the Kickstarter is live currently. It's fully funded. What stage are you at in terms of the design process? And yeah, where is the project currently?
The player's handbook, so all the creature folks, their abilities, their weaknesses, everything player facing is
Hmm.
completely built up, fleshed out, thoroughly play tested. The overall like design of the book is pretty much done.
Nice.
The Game Master's Guide is in a near complete state. We're doing some final tweaks. Every time we sort of revise it, we're like, oh, we could make this a little bit easier, a little bit faster,
Hmm.
a little bit clearer to people. I think being both concise and clear has been
Yeah.
really an interesting juggling act.
Hmm.
Um, and then we've got one of the pre-built modules already developed, which is going to be free to everybody from our website, whether you
Oh.
have this system or not.
Hmm.
It's just that having the books allows you to actually run them. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, most of the time that we're going to be spending between now and release is on art. Really,
Hmm.
mechanically, the game is very fleshed out. There's very few tweaks that we still feel like we need to make to it.
Fantastic.
Lots of playtesting already done. Yeah, it's really just art. We want to make a lot of the like small quality of life things that we have. Like we have cool little Creaturefolk cards that just
Hmm.
have their like a little bit more lore on them. Their stats you could use it as like a little player, just keeping track of who you are and what your abilities and stuff are at a glance.
Hmm.
But that's really it. It's primarily the art and the assets that are going in the book and the layout, and we're kind of done. It's technically in a playable state. It just doesn't look very nice yet.
Fair enough. No, and I guess that's what the crowdfunding's for, to be able to pay to have the time to work on the art and do all
Yes.
those things like that. Fantastic. Well, that all sounds really great. This is actually your first Kickstarter campaign that you've done. I think we mentioned before we
Yes.
started recording. And anytime anyone does a crowdfunder for the first time or launches a project, there's always lessons you've learned and things you've picked up. I was wondering if you'd be willing to share any of those with people. So if somebody listening is planning to launch their first crowdfunder, do you have any tips or pitfalls you want to share with them?
Yeah, I think the one thing something we knew before starting the Kickstarter, but didn't properly implement until it was far too late, was being competent at all at using social media.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
both my partner and myself are terrible at using social media or uh, knowing the proper like etiquette or best practices around self promotion, because we don't want to come off
Mhm.
as like self-aggrandizing or anything, but at the same time,
Sure.
it feels like sometimes you have to.
Mhm.
So I think getting familiar with social media and how to advertise yourself before you start doing a Kickstarter
Mhm.
is really important. We jumped in the deep end and learned when we had to, and it wasn't fun at all. We suddenly realized we need a lot
Yeah.
more like assets to show to people. We need a lot more ideas behind how we can present what we're doing. And I think we did okay, but there's a lot of things that we would change for next time, like a lot more like in development photos,
Mhm.
um, a lot more maybe like playtesting setup photos and stuff like that. Things that we never really thought of doing while we're on the spot because we were just busy toying with it and enjoying it.
Mhm.
But now in hindsight, we're like, oh, we probably should have made a little bit of time to figure that out. I
To
think the
share
other
that
thing,
journey, yeah.
yeah, the other thing is and it's something that, even though I'm going to give the advice, I still haven't properly learned myself, which is perfection is the enemy. It's never going to be perfect. Um, we delayed the Kickstarter for this for a little while, and we're delaying. There's other projects that we're running now that we delayed for a very long time because I was obsessed with trying to get it meticulous, like absolutely perfect, or the way I envisioned it, and it was just delaying things forever and forever and forever. And it's really only now that I'm learning, like, you can't. A good product exists is far better than a perfect product that doesn't.
Yes, absolutely true. I think that's a really hard lesson. I also have that at work as well, so I completely relate to it. I think it's really common when you work in RPGs and things, because we all get into this because we're passionate about it. And so when you're working on a passion project, it makes it even more harder to learn that lesson. But I think there's some really great tips. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. As we have mentioned a few times, the Kickstarter is currently live. There's only 5 days left at the time of recording, which is on 14th of July. So if any of this has sounded vaguely interesting to you, please go and check out the Kickstarter page, because the best way to support indie tabletop RPG creators is to buy their stuff if you can. And if you can't, if you can share and talk about it online, that's also a great thing to do. That's really helpful. Mitch, if people want to get in touch and talk to you, what are the best ways for people to reach you and find out about Fire and Fable online?
Yeah, we have we're on both Instagram and Blue Sky under Fire and Fable Studios. We are getting much better at being active on those and using them properly. So getting in touch with us on those is good. You can get in touch with us through email as well, but I think social media is generally the better way, unless it's something quite formal, I suppose.
Sure. Great.
Yeah, I think they'd be the best two ways: Instagram or Blue Sky.
Perfect. I got those up on the screen for watching live, and the links are in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast. Well, Mitch, thanks so much for coming on and talking about the game. Before you go, I'd like to talk about some other games with you very briefly. So do you have any other tabletop RPGs you'd like to recommend? And the rules are it can't be a game you've made, and it can't be, of course, D&D.
Yes, definitely. Both of them are rules-lite, or at least rules concise, because I thought thematically that fits.
Yeah.
One of the games that inspired my partner and myself to really get working on First Encounter properly, and got us really excited about the project and sort of being like, well, we'll get to it eventually, was this little system called Blight and Boon.
Lovely.
I think they were just a little, they're a local creator named Helen Graham. So I don't know how like available this would be anywhere else. I don't know if they have it available online or anything. But it's really cool. It's a small survival RPG, only a few pages long, but gives these really nice rules for like your players are trapped on a desert island and need to fight against dwindling resources. At every turn, whatever decision they make, things are probably going to get just a little bit worse for them in some way. And I thought that was a really interesting, concise system. It looks really nice. The artwork is not elaborate. It's just simple and almost like chalk drawn. It looks very Survivor-esque. It's really cool. And I think the most important thing is it's all very clear and easy to understand, which I really appreciate in a system.
Yeah.
The other one is Dark Vigil by Nicole Renner. This one I know for a fact is available online. I think another Australian creator, but don't quote me on that. I think she is.
Okay. She feels Australian anyway, has the spirit, if not, the residency.
Yeah. I met her at a games convention. Seemed really passionate about this project she was doing. It was really, really cool. So just bought it on the spot. Rules are very simple. I'm not really sure what the system would be called.
Okay.
But you use a handful of different dice. The idea is you're in this Victorian-ish era world where the sun has completely gone out. Everything is bathed in darkness, and the only bastions of light are under these huge spirit lanterns.
Okay.
that keep like the creatures of the darkness at bay, the things that the darkness can corrupt out of towns and stuff like that. And the further that you want to adventure, the much more prepared you'll have to be. Like, you're carrying tiny amounts of resources, maybe a spirit lantern if you want to survive more than a few steps outside the gates. It's cool. Very low combat, very mystery driven, at least in my experience with running it. And the rulebook is just very clear and nice, and so clearly Nicole knew what she wanted out of the system and just achieved it so well. It's such a cool little, like, concise rulebook. I love it.
Fab. Well, thank you for sharing them. They both sound really interesting. See if I can get one or more online. But thank you so much for coming on and waking up early to come and talk to us about First Encounter. Congratulations on the Kickstarter, fully funding, and I'm really excited to see the final product of First Encounter.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, we should have it by December. We're hoping, but yeah, it's
perfect. That's like, so by the end of 2025. Amazing.
Yeah,
that's
we'll see how much I can overcome my obsession with trying to perfect it.
We shall see. That will be the measure. It's here online. You said it here, so that's the kind of goal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on, and thank you for everybody who has watched and listened. Thanks for supporting the show. We'll be back next week with another rules-lite tabletop RPG to share with you. But for now, we'll say thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye.